Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2, Chapter 7.5, Notes. Today we're talking about solving equations by factoring. So, what I want you to do is solve each of the following equations for the given variable. Remember to draw the line down the middle if we need to. Now for number 1, it's minus 5, and we need to follow the rules of SAD map. Okay, so I'm going to do the opposite. So x equals 5. Okay, for number 2, that's multiplication, and to get rid of multiplication, we do the inverse, which is to divide, and we get 0. Okay, now this one we have a couple more steps to do. We have to get rid of the subtraction first, and after we do that, then we can divide. And we get w equals 2/3. Alright, so today we're talking about the zero product property. And what they're saying is that when we multiply two different numbers and it equals 0, it means that either A or B have to be 0. Okay, does that make sense? Because when you multiply two things and one of them 0, one of those has to be 0. Okay, so what we have to do is, with this property in mind, let's solve the following equations that are in factored form. To do this, set each variable equal to 0 and solve. Okay, so we're looking to see how many variables we have. Okay, we have two variables, so each one we set equal to 0 and then solve it. Well, we only have to solve the one on the left or the right because we know x equals 0, and then if we subtract 3 to both sides, we get x equals -3. The amount of variables we have are the number of answers we're going to have. Okay, so for number 2, we only have one variable. Okay, so we have to set the 5x minus 7 equal to 0. Okay, so rules say we have to add the x to, or add the 7 to both sides, so we get 5x equals 7. And to get the x by itself, we divide both sides, so we get x equals 7/5. Alright, number 3. We have two variables, so I'm going to set each one of those equal to 0. Alright, and when we do that, we get x equals 5, and then when we add 8 to both sides, we get x equals 8. Okay, now, a lot of people said, well, Mr. Grice, what about that 8 right there? Aren't we supposed to do something with that? Well, no, because if we set that equal to 0, it doesn't happen. Okay, that doesn't work. Alright, now, the 8's outside because we've already factored it out of our problem, and then we don't need it anymore. Okay? Alright, let's take a look. How many variables we have? We have 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to set each one of those equal to 0. So we get x equals 0 because we divide both sides by -2. In the red, we subtract 4 to both sides and we get x equals -4. Now in the purple, we got to do a little bit more work. We have to subtract the 1 and then divide. Okay? Now number 5, why don't you pause the video and see if you can figure out what to set everything up as. Okay? Okay, and now when you go through and solve it, we get x equals 10. Subtract the 7 and divide by 6. Alright, number 6, you're all on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and see how you do. Okay, there are 3 variables in there, so there's 3 different things you should set equal to 0. And then when you solve it, you get x equals 0, x equals 9, and x equals negative 2/3. Okay, now, those were easy because we started, they were already factored. Now, we're going to be dealing with problems that aren't factored, and we have to do it to solve it. Okay? So, we need to get all the terms on one side and make sure that the leading coefficient is positive. After we do that, we need to factor and set each variable equal to 0 and solve. So, for number 10, my leading coefficient is the one with the highest exponent, and I want it to stay positive. So, if I were to subtract 15x squared to both sides, that would be negative 20x squared, and we don't want that. Okay? So, that's why we need to add 5x squared to both sides. Okay, and if I'm adding the 5x squared, we need to subtract the 2x. And then we get 20x squared plus 14x plus 2 equal to 0. Okay, so now when we're factoring, the first thing we always check is their GCF. And there is a GCF. We can divide everything by 2. And we write our remainder inside the 10x squared plus 7x plus 1 equals to 0. Now it's time to do some side work. We're going to take that and we're going to come over to the side and we're going to factor it. So, what numbers? We can do the factors of 10, which are 1 and 10, 2 and 5. So which one of those add up to get to 7 will multiply to get to 10. Okay, and you should have got 2 and 5. So we're going to break down 7 to 2x plus 5x plus 1. I'm going to do this fast because we should be used to this by now. Okay, the GCF of the front is 2x, and of the back it's a positive 1. And we get 5x plus 1. We get 5x plus 1, and this is perfect because that's what we were looking for. Okay, and so we get 2x plus 1, 5x plus 1. And that's what we're going to take and show that we factored it and we broke it down. But now, everything with the variable, we set equal to 0. Okay, so I'm going to do the yellow over here, and I'm going to do the blue one over here, so I get enough room. 2x plus 1 equals 0. You subtract, and we get x equals negative 1/2. We do 5x plus 1 equals 0. You subtract and divide, and then we get our two answers of negative 1/2 and negative 1/5. Okay, so we had 2 variables, so we had 2 answers. Alright, now, looking at our leading coefficients, which one are we going to move? We're going to move the negative 3 because if I move it to the other side, it turns to a positive 3. Okay, and we're going to subtract the 9x. And we get 9 9x cubed minus 81x. So the first thing you always need to ask yourself, is there a GCF? And there is. Okay, we can factor a 9x. So we get 0 equals 9x, and we're left with x squared minus 9. Now, this is the difference of two squares. The square root of x squared is x. One's a plus, one's a minus. And the square root of 9 is 3. So now our side work, we set everything with a variable equal to 0. Okay? We get x equals 0, x equals negative 3, and x equals positive 3. And there's our answer. All right. Number 12. My leading coefficient is just that 2x squared. So now what I need to move is the 10x. Then I also need to move that positive 28. So we get 2x squared plus 10x plus 28 equals to 0. So, is there a GCF? There is. We can factor out a2. And we're left with x squared plus 5x plus 14 equal to 0. And that should not be 10x because I didn't add the 18. And 18 divided by 2 is 9. So always watch, make sure you are positive with what you're doing. Okay? So we need to factor x squared plus 9x plus 14. So the factors of 14 are 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. So out of those, what numbers add up to 9 and multiply to get to 14? 2 and 7. So we're going to split the middle term and get x squared plus 2x plus 7x plus 14. Okay, the GCF of the front is an x. In the back, it's 7. X plus 2. And x plus 2, which is perfect because that's what we needed. And so we get x plus 7, x plus 2. So that's what our next step is, the x plus 7, x plus 2 equals 0. Okay? And everything with a variable we set equal to 0. And that's where we get x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 7. Alright, so the last thing we need to do is just to write that x equals negative 7 and negative 2. Alright, so number 13, try to find your leading coefficient. There it is right there. And we need to move it to the other side. So why don't you guys pause the video and see if you can move everything yourself. Good luck. Okay, that's what you should have gotten because your 11 and 11, those actually cancel out and you're left with 81x cubed minus 49x. we need to take out the GCF, which is just an x, and we're left with 81x squared minus 49 equals 0. And now that is actually the difference of two squares. The square root of 81x squared is 9x, and 49 is 7. So you guys are going to be on your own from here. You're going to set everything with the variable equal to 0. Okay? So you should have 1, 2, 3 things to work on right there. Okay? Go ahead and pause the video, and good luck. Okay, and when you solve them, you should get x equals 0, negative 7 over 9, and 7 over 9. Okay, last one. Number 14. My leading coefficient is the x squared. I want to keep it positive, so I have to move the 2x. So subtract 2x squared, subtract the 5x, and we get 0 equals x squared minus 7x minus 15. Okay? So we're going to take this right here and bring it over here. So x squared minus 7x minus 15. And we want the factors of 15 and what adds up to negative 7 and multiplies to get to negative 15. Okay? 1 and 15, 3 and 5. And as you're trying to think and bust your brains, there's nothing. Okay? So this problem can't be solved by factoring. Okay? Because technically it can be solved by quadratic formula, if you remember that from freshman year. However, we're not going to be going through that in this class. Okay? Now, your homework is right below. This is your homework. Do it. All right, if you have any questions, come see Ms. Carranza or myself. We'd love to help you out. Otherwise, that's it for Algebra 2, Chapter 7.5 Notes. Thanks for watching.